I always thought I knew my wife. The woman I married was everything I wanted, beautiful, devoted, and loyal. She was my rock, my best friend, and I trusted her with every part of me. But what I found out about her, it shattered everything I believed. The truth was something I never saw coming. She had been with 3 black men. 3 men. And in that moment, everything I knew about our life, about her, it all crumbled. I never thought something like this would happen to me. I thought our love was unbreakable. But trust? Trust can be broken in an instant. Stay with me as I share the story of betrayal, heartbreak, and the secret that could destroy everything we built together. I met Amina back in college, and from the moment we met, I knew she was someone special. She was a bright, strong woman, so deeply rooted in her faith, and yet, there was something in her eyes that told me she carried a story, a strength that intrigued me. She wasn't like anyone I'd ever met before. Her grace, her ability to make everyone feel like they mattered, her unwavering faith, it was magnetic. We clicked right away, and I knew, in that moment, that I wanted her in my life for the long haul. I wanted to marry her. So, I did. We built a life together. A good life. Our marriage was filled with everything I ever dreamed of, love, respect, and the kind of bond that most people only hope for. We made plans for the future, talked about our dreams, our faith, everything. She was not just my wife, she was my partner, my confidence, the person I turned to in the good times and the bad. And our families loved her. They saw in her what I saw, the woman who would stand by me through anything. The one I could trust, the one who would never let me down. I thought we were perfect, but as time went on, I started noticing things. Small things at first, nothing that would raise any immediate alarms, but still, it felt like something was changing. Amina was still the woman I married, but there were subtle shifts in her behavior. She'd come home late some nights, more distracted, distant. She'd seem preoccupied when we were together, her mind somewhere else. I brushed it off at first. Life gets busy, right? But it wasn't just one thing, it was the little inconsistencies that started to add up. She was still the woman I loved, but I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I kept telling myself it was nothing. We had our ups and downs, like any couple. But deep inside, I could feel the tension growing. Something had changed. And that feeling, that sense that I couldn't put my finger on, haunted me every day. As time passed, I noticed Amina starting to stay out later than usual. She'd say she was working late, attending meetings, or helping friends with something, but it never seemed to add up. It was small at first, easy to ignore. I wanted to trust her, I really did. But the more it happened, the more I started feeling uneasy. Something just wasn't right. It wasn't just the late nights. It was the little things that kept building. The way she'd flinch when her phone buzzed, quickly looking away as if she didn't want me to see. Or how she'd suddenly get defensive when I asked simple questions. Where were you? Who were you with? They were questions any husband should be able to ask without suspicion, but I started noticing the shift in her responses. A little too quick, a little too vague. I couldn't explain it, but I felt like she was hiding something from me. There was one night in particular, one moment that changed everything. We were sitting at the dinner table, just the two of us. I remember it clearly. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow through the window, and for a brief second, it felt like everything was fine again. Then her phone buzzed on the table. She didn't reach for it immediately, but I saw her glance at the screen. And for a split second, her face shifted. It was subtle, but I caught it. She was uncomfortable. I tried to ignore it, but my gut told me to pay attention. Curiosity got the best of me. As she was standing up to go to the kitchen, I grabbed her phone. I didn't want to. I wasn't proud of what I was about to do, but something told me I had to know. I unlocked it, she'd left it open. And there it was, a message popped up on the screen, from a name I didn't recognize. I froze. My heart started racing. My hands began to shake, but I couldn't stop myself from looking. I had to know. What I saw next, I still can't believe it. Messages, dozens of them, exchanged between Amina and 3 different men. And not just any men. These were 3 black men. Each one had their own thread, their own conversations. The messages weren't just casual, they were intimate, personal. And then, there were the photos. Explicit, graphic images that left me breathless. My mind couldn't process it. What I was seeing didn't make sense. Amina? My wife? With 3 men? I felt a cold wave of disbelief crash over me. My heart dropped to my stomach. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. She had been planning to meet them, making arrangements to see them. But the worst part? She never mentioned them to me. Never once did she let on that she was living a life completely hidden from me. I wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed. Everything I knew, everything I trusted about her, about us, was shattered in that instant. I waited for Amina to come home that night, my mind racing, trying to figure out how to even begin confronting her. I couldn't stop thinking about the messages, the photos, the plans. It felt like my world was spinning out of control. When she finally walked through the door, I was standing there, holding her phone. My heart was pounding, and I could hardly look at her. I didn't know what to say, but I knew I couldn't keep this in any longer. I asked her to sit down, and she did, looking at me with that same calm expression she always had. But I knew. I could see it in her eyes. She knew something was coming. I didn't waste any time. I showed her the messages. Her face drained of color the second she saw them. I watched as her eyes flickered between the screen and my face. For a moment, she just stared, speechless. I could feel the tension in the room thickening, a cold silence settling between us. She started to deny it, of course, saying it wasn't what it looked like, that I was mistaken. But I had the evidence in my hands. The truth was staring her down, and she couldn't escape it. Then, slowly, I saw her break. Her whole body seemed to collapse in on itself. Her shoulders slumped, and I could hear her breath catch in her chest. The woman who was always so strong, so composed, she was unraveling in front of me. I sat there, waiting for her to speak. The silence stretched on until she finally did. She told me she had felt neglected, that she felt unimportant, like I wasn't seeing her anymore. I didn't know how to respond. She said it wasn't about love, that it was never about love, it was about feeling wanted again, feeling desired. She said she needed to feel that spark, that attention, because she felt invisible in our marriage. And hearing her say that, hearing her justify what she had done, it crushed me. My chest tightened, and I couldn't breathe for a moment. How could she betray me like that? How could she betray our vows? The promises we made to each other? Was I really so blind to what she was going through? I didn't know what to feel. I was lost in a sea of emotions, anger, hurt, humiliation, all of it. But what hit me the hardest wasn't just the affair itself. It wasn't even the fact that she had been with 3 different men. It was that these men, they weren't from our community. They weren't even close to what I thought she valued. I couldn't understand why she would go outside of our marriage. Outside of our shared values, to find what she needed. Why these men? What was it about them that I couldn't provide? The betrayal felt deeper than I could have ever imagined, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. She was crying now, apologizing, but it felt hollow. It wasn't just the affair that shattered me, it was everything she hadn't said, everything she hadn't shared with me. The realization that she had been living a separate life, one that I was completely excluded from, it hurt more than anything. I was torn. Amina begged for my forgiveness, over and over again. She promised me that she would never make the same mistake, that she was truly sorry for what she had done. She told me she didn't know how it happened, that it was a mistake, and she was willing to do whatever it took to make things right. And for a moment, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that this was just a terrible lapse, something she regretted deeply and would never do again. But the reality of it all, everything that had just come to light, kept pressing in on me, and I couldn't shake the question, could I ever trust her again? Could I ever look at her the same way after everything I had just learned? Our whole life, everything we had built together, now felt like a lie. Every memory, every conversation, every laugh we had shared, it all suddenly felt empty, like it had no meaning. How could I have been so blind? How could I not see the signs of what was happening right under my nose? I thought we had something special, something unbreakable. But now it felt like nothing more than a facade, a false version of reality that was crumbling before my eyes. The worst part? The fact that she hadn't just made a mistake once, but with 3 different men. And not just any men, men who were so completely different from me, from our world. She had shared herself with them in a way that was meant for me. How could I ever get past that? How could I ever forget what I had seen? I spent hours, days even, in a constant whirlwind of emotions. The anger, the humiliation, the betrayal, it was like a physical weight on my chest. But at the same time, there was this aching part of me that still loved her, still wanted to believe in the woman I married. Amina wasn't a stranger to me. I knew her, or at least, I thought I did. How could the woman I loved and trusted do something so hurtful, so completely out of character? To try and make sense of it all, I sought guidance. I went to our imam, hoping for some kind of spiritual clarity. I thought maybe he could offer me some wisdom, something that could help me understand what to do next. But his advice, while compassionate, didn't bring me peace. He spoke about forgiveness and mercy, about healing a broken heart, but I couldn't see how that was possible. How could I forgive her when the pain felt so fresh, so raw? How could I trust her when I had seen firsthand the deception she was capable of? I also turned to my family, hoping they could offer some comfort, some direction. But even they were torn. Some told me I should walk away, there was no coming back from something like this. Others said I should give her a chance to prove herself, that people make mistakes, and maybe we could rebuild from here. The more advice I received, the more confused I became. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of opinions, none of which seemed to bring me any closer to an answer. And then, I even saw a therapist. I thought that maybe talking to a professional, someone completely neutral, could help me see things more clearly. But even in therapy, the question that kept running through my mind, should I forgive her or walk away, remained unanswered. I could see both sides of the argument. I could understand the importance of forgiveness, of trying to heal a relationship. But I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling inside of me, that maybe what she had done was too big to overcome. Could I ever look at her the same way again? Could I ever feel the same trust, the same love, after knowing what she had done? It was tearing me apart. I loved Amina. I really did. There was still a part of me that believed in her, in us, but trust, once it's broken, how do you rebuild it? The thing that haunted me the most, the thing I couldn't escape, was the thought of those men. The men she had been with, how could I ever forget that? How could I forget the images in my mind, the things she did with them, the things she shared with them, behind my back? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with them, and the pain was almost unbearable. Could I truly forgive her? Could I truly move on? Or was this the end of our marriage, and everything we had built? My heart felt shattered, but it also felt numb. I was stuck between love and betrayal, between wanting to hold on and wanting to walk away. I couldn't stop asking myself, should I even try to rebuild from this? Is love enough when trust is broken so completely? Every time I thought I had an answer, it shifted. I just didn't know if I could get past the image of her with those men, the secret life she had been living. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was emotional, it was mental, it was everything I thought I knew about her and our life together. I felt lost, and the worst part was that I couldn't see a way forward. In the end, I had to make a choice. I could try to rebuild our relationship, but it would never be the same. The trust was gone, and no matter how many apologies she gave me, it wouldn't change that. Or I could walk away and move on from the life we built together. It felt like there was no middle ground. The damage had been done. The hardest part wasn't just deciding what to do, it was realizing that love and trust are fragile. No matter how much I loved Amina, some betrayals are just too deep to forgive. And this was one of those betrayals. It wasn't just about her actions, it was about the fact that once trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. As much as I wanted to forgive, I couldn't erase what had happened. The pain, the images in my mind, it was too much. I came to understanding that forgiveness isn't just for the other person, it's for yourself too. It's about finding the strength to move on and let go of the hurt. But there are times when walking away is the only option. And that's what I did. I chose to leave, not because I didn't love her, but because I needed to protect my own peace of mind. It wasn't easy. It wasn't a decision I made lightly. But sometimes the hardest choice isn't about love, it's about knowing when to let go for your own well-being. And that's what I had to do. So, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Could you ever forgive someone who betrayed you like this? I know it's not an easy question to answer, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and share your perspective. If you've been through something similar, don't hesitate to tell your story, I'm sure it will help others who might be going through the same thing. And if you want to hear more real-life stories about love, betrayal, and shocking truths, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so you never miss an update. There's more to come, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.